Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so your friends see it. Thank you.
Trump's shock and awe foreign policy. When a reporter asked President Donald Trump last May whether he would ever meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un, Trump didn't flinch. "If it would be appropriate for me to meet him, I would absolutely. I would be honored to do it," Trump told Bloomberg News. Boasting that he had just made breaking news, Trump added with pride, "Most political people would never say that." That paled in comparison to the breaking news Thursday night, when the White House confirmed that Trump had accepted Kim's invitation for the first meeting between an American president and a North Korean leader. But it spotlighted an instinct that has defined Trump's early foreign policy: say the things others wouldn't say, do the things they didn't dare. He likes to be the first. He likes doing things no one has ever done before, one senior Trump official said. Trump's taboo-breaking instinct was most recently on clear display in his December decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, a pledge several presidents had made but, on the Council of Advisors and fellow world leaders, decided to shelve. Trump officials say that was a key factor behind the president's thinking, something he made clear in a December 6 statement from the White House. While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to deliver, Trump said. "Today, I am delivering." The allure of a bold gesture also helped motivate Trump's surprise airstrikes last spring to punish Syrian regime forces for the use of chemical weapons. The Obama administration spent years debating military options in Syria that it never acted on. Trump, who ordered the attack from his Mar-a-Lago resort in South Florida, made it look easy. The principle even applies to Trump's stubborn overtures to Russian President Vladimir Putin, whom the president has tried to befriend in the face of overwhelming political opposition. Special counsel Robert Mueller may yet find that Trump has ulterior motives. But Trump's outreach to Russia is also consistent with a desire to do what the foreign policy establishment, against which he partly campaigned, insists can simply not be done. Trump will have another chance to shock and awe the world in May, when he must again decide whether to extend the Iran nuclear deal or walk away from a seven-nation accord. Trump officials have bluntly warned alarmed European allies that he is deadly serious about abandoning the deal once and for all if they don't find a way to strengthen or supplement it. Some doubt that it can be done without driving Iran out of the agreement, potentially risking a military confrontation with Tehran. Trump's grand gestures may make for high drama, but they come with real danger, especially when made by a figure with no experience or expertise in foreign policy. Recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, for instance, likely snuffed any near-term hope of an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement, according to many regional experts. The limited Syrian airstrike has underscored Trump's unclear policy towards the country, critics say, where the regime has recently mounted so many chlorine gas attacks that Trump is reportedly considering another military strike. And a naive desire to befriend Putin, members of both parties argue, prevents Trump from pushing back against Russian political meddling and leaves European allies questioning whether they can rely on the U.S. for protection from Putin. Some Trump allies argued on Thursday that it was the president's very record of defying convention that led to Kim's unexpected invitation. Trump's glee in shocking the Council on Foreign Relations set, they maintained, left Kim fearful that the U.S. president might do what nearly everyone in Washington called unthinkable, risk the deaths of millions in Asia by attacking his country. They cited the comments of North Korean defector and former regime official Ri Jong-ho, who said in remarks at the Wilson Center in Washington on Wednesday that Kim is afraid that the U.S. will launch a preventative strike. It is equally possible, many analysts argued Thursday, that the North Korean dictator is not afraid at all, but empowered, and drawing Trump into a trap that will enhance Kim's domestic mystique while buying himself time and political goodwill in South Korea and beyond. U.S. officials have spent years studying Kim, building a psychological profile of the young tyrant and looking for ways to manipulate him. But the North Koreans have been closely watching the U.S. They undoubtedly noticed Trump's obvious excitement about the idea of meeting Kim, which dates to at least mid-2016. And they surely were gratified to learn that, on receiving the news of Kim's invitation, Trump could barely contain himself. The president made a rare appearance in the White House press room to alert reporters himself that a major announcement would be coming later that night. After the news broke, ABC News reported that Trump had discussed the upcoming announcement with its network's top White House reporter, Jonathan Karl. When Karl asked whether the announcement involved talks between the US and North Korea, "It's almost beyond that," Trump replied. "Hopefully," he added, "you will give me credit." Trump After Dark, Kim's May Day edition. A White House characterized by twists and turns delivered again today. President Donald Trump is set to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un, a virtually unprecedented move for the United States and one fraught with risk for the president. More surprising than even Trump's decision to meet with Kim, his apparent willingness to meet soon, perhaps as soon as May. That timeline, as well as Trump's agreement in principle to meet with a leader he has mocked as a little rocket man and threatened with annihilation, was part of a stunning announcement delivered by South Korea's National Security Advisor, Chung Eui-yong, to reporters gathered at the White House. Chung had traveled to the U.S. to brief Trump and other officials the day after talks between South Korea and North Korea in Pyongyang. He told reporters that North Korea had signaled it would not test missiles anymore and would be willing to negotiate ending its nuclear weapons program. Per Chung, Kim stressed his eagerness to meet President Trump as soon as possible. President Trump appreciated the greeting and said he would meet Kim Jong Un by May to achieve permanent denuclearization. Elsewhere in President Trump's orbit. Still a big deal, President Trump brushed off concerns from Republicans and announced new tariffs for steel and aluminum. On a day when other events stole the show, this still could be an action that blows up the global trade order. Man down, Paul Manafort will go to trial on July 10 for 18 counts of tax evasion of bank fraud. It's one of two trials he'll face. Zinc again. The Department of Interior is set to spend $139,000 for a new door to Secretary Ryan Zink's office. Zink says he was not aware of the contract and sees it as a lot of money for a new door. Koch spills. Billionaire GOP donor Charles Koch tripped President Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs, which he says do more harm than good. Refugee skeptic. A White House aide known for his skepticism of refugees and support of policies restricting refugees has been appointed to a top State Department role overseeing their admissions to the U.S. There you have it. You're caught up on the Trump administration. That's Thursday in the books. Trump threatens to blow up global trading order with tariffs. President Donald Trump says he is protecting national security by imposing tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, but he may have just thrown a bomb into the global trading system. Using national security to justify tariffs will likely invite copycat behavior from other countries, ranging from India restricting U.S. agriculture imports in the name of food security, to China defending its massive subsidies to industry as a security necessity. The result could be a cascade of unintended consequences that could restrict the ability of Iowa farmers to export corn, automakers to competitively sell cars overseas, and increase costs to U.S. consumers. More ominously, experts say the move represents a nuclear option in the trade world that threatens the very institutions that maintain the global economic order. Using national security in a way that nobody believes, it's a complete perversion of what is supposed to be extraordinary latitude in the world trading system for countries to deal with their national security interests, said Gary Hufbauer, a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. There's an unspoken truth at the World Trade Organization, where countries routinely challenge each other's trade actions. Nobody invokes national security and nobody questions national security, even though WTO rules allow countries to take extraordinary steps if they feel their national security is at risk. A legal challenge that will likely arise at the WTO over the U.S. tariffs could force a judicial panel to rule on the sacred question of what is or isn't national security. That could massively erode support for the international system, especially from the Trump administration, which has already scorned WTO decisions that it contends infringe on U.S. sovereignty. A WTO panel has never done it before, and they realize if they do that, that's going to be the death knell of the WTO, Hufbauer said. The Trump administration strongly argues that a 25% tariff on steel and a 10% tariff on aluminum is necessary to maintain national security. Economic security is national security, the White House trumpeted in a fact sheet released just prior to Trump's announcement. A senior administration official said the rationale from a national security and economic security perspective is unassailable. We need aluminum and steel to build everything from the Bradley fighting vehicle, an F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, to the littoral combat ship, the Tomahawk missile, Delta IV and Atlas V rockets, the official told reporters. And, importantly, as we move on this national security argument, broadly defined, again, it's not just defense applications. It's also things like critical infrastructure, whether it's the electricity grid, dams, transportation projects, water and sewer treatment plants. The Commerce Department investigation that cleared the way for Trump to impose tariffs concluded that a flood of cheaper imports threatened domestic industries to the point where they might be unable to meet demands for national defense and critical industries in a national emergency. It is permissible under WTO rules to do what we are doing, and we are doing that, the official added. But legal experts say Trump and his advisors have undermined their own national security case by tying restrictions on Ontario, Canada and Mexico to their cooperation in NAFTA talks. Those two countries were officially exempted from the tariffs for national security reasons, but Trump continued to tie their exclusion to the outcome of NAFTA negotiations in his remarks before signing the tariff orders. When the president publicly states that he's willing to exempt Mexico and Canada if they give him concessions in NAFTA negotiations, he's undermining the weak legal argument they have to begin with, said Matt Gold, a former U.S. trade official under President Barack Obama who is now an adjunct law professor at Fordham University. The Commerce Department's investigation, conducted under an obscure provision of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, also includes a cautionary note from the Defense Department. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said he agreed with Commerce's findings that unfair trade and its impact on the U.S. industrial base poses a risk to our national security, but said there was little risk the military would suffer a shortage of steel or aluminum. The U.S. military requirements for steel and aluminum each only represent about 3% of U.S. production, Mattis wrote in a memo. Therefore, DoD does not believe that the findings in the reports impact the ability of DoD programs to acquire the steel or aluminum necessary to meet national defense requirements. The WTO's national security exception leaves open a number of ways a country can justify a trade restriction. Mattis' note would likely preclude the use of one of those national security exceptions, which can be interpreted to mean the supply of military equipment. In this case, the likely defense would be under an emergency in international relations, Gold said. That envisions a scenario in which the world is in the grips of a major conflict to the point where ocean shipping is disrupted and steel and aluminum imports are cut off, he said. It's a weak, bordering on absurd, argument, Gold said of the administration's rationale. There's also a fear that once the U.S. goes down the path of justifying trade restrictions on the basis of national security, it will be difficult to backtrack. At some point you'll have to say, well, there's no longer a national security problem. And why? So the national security justification will make it even harder to back out, and I think the world will see through this, said Carlos Gutierrez, former Commerce Secretary under President George W. Bush, who is now chairman of the National Foreign Trade Council. He added that the U.S. is just walking into an entanglement. It just becomes a more complex web to get out of, Gutierrez said. Trade wars are easy to get in but difficult to get out of. It also sets up a potential confrontation with the WTO, especially with skepticism of the WTO already running high in the Trump administration, said former U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman, now a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. One reason why the US and others have been so reluctant and so careful about not invoking the national security exception is precisely because we don't want the WTO necessarily adjudicating how to define essential national security, Froman said during a conference call this week. Froman warned that a WTO challenge of the Trump tariffs could put the global trading system at the center of a crucible. One view of this is it's a way of bringing the WTO to a moment of crisis to justify potentially the U.S. withdrawing from the dispute settlement procedures, he said. Doug Palmer and Megan Gossela contribute to this report.